Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. David Miller thought he had it all: a loving wife, a successful career, and a home filled with warmth. Each year, as a tradition, he and his wife, Angela, would escape the bustling life of New York to rejuvenate at their favorite resort in the Caribbean. This year, however, was different. When he proposed the idea, Angela's face didn't light up with excitement as it usually did. She hesitated before answering. "I can't this time, David. Work's swamped, and I've got a project deadline that I just can't miss," she explained, avoiding his gaze. David felt a twinge of disappointment but quickly masked it with a supportive smile. "It's okay, love. Maybe next time," he said, wrapping her in a gentle hug, which she returned half-heartedly. Over the next few days, David noticed more changes in Angela. She was constantly on her phone, smiling at messages that she quickly hid when he approached. Her late nights at the office became more frequent, and she seemed more distant during their rare dinners together. One evening, while Angela was supposedly working late again, David's phone buzzed with a notification. It was from a friend who was vacationing at the same Caribbean resort they frequented. The message was casual, but the attached photo was like a punch to his gut. There was Angela, unmistakably sitting on a stranger's lap, her head thrown back in laughter as the man kissed her neck. David's heart raced as he stared at the photo. The world around him seemed to halt, and a cold fury settled in his chest. He called Angela immediately. "Hey, are you still at the office?" he asked, voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "Yes, just wrapping up a few things. Miss you." Angela's voice was cheerful, oblivious to his discovery. David clenched his jaw. "Okay, love. See you at home later." He spent a sleepless night in the living room, waiting for Angela to return. When she finally did, she was surprised to find him awake. "David? What's wrong? Why are you up so late?" Her voice was laced with concern, but David could only see deceit. Without a word, he threw his phone onto the coffee table, the photo lighting up the screen. Angela's eyes widened, and her face drained of color as she picked up the phone. "David, I can explain," she started, but David cut her off. "No need. I saw enough. I thought I knew you, Angela. I thought we had something real," he said, his voice low and hurt. "But I was wrong." Angela's eyes filled with tears, but David was unmoved. He had loved her with all his heart, and in return, she had shattered his trust. "I want a divorce," he stated firmly, his decision cemented by the betrayal that burned in his heart. "But David, please. No. It's over, Angela." "We're over," David interrupted, turning away to hide his own pain. "I'll be staying at a hotel. I'll contact you through my lawyer." With that, David left the room, leaving behind the life he thought he had. As he closed the door on his past, a steely resolve formed within him. Angela had chosen her path, and now, he would choose his. Revenge would be his closure, a way to mend the gaping wound she left in his heart. The following days were a blur as David set his plan into motion. He would make sure that Angela realized the gravity of her actions, not just emotionally but in every aspect of her life. This was just the beginning, and David was far from done. David's resolve hadn't wavered as the sun rose over the city, casting long shadows across the busy streets. He had spent the night at a hotel, planning each step of his retribution with meticulous detail. By morning, his plan was clear and set in motion. He started by calling Angela's boss. Posing as a concerned business partner, David expressed worry about some fictitious financial discrepancies linked to Angela's project. His voice was calm, collected, but insinuating enough to plant seeds of doubt. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention," her boss had said, his tone turning from casual to serious. "We'll look into this immediately." Next, David reached out to mutual friends and subtly spread the news of Angela's infidelity. He chose his words carefully, making sure to appear heartbroken and betrayed rather than vengeful. By midday, whispers of Angela's actions had spiraled into a storm of gossip. As David anticipated his next move, his phone rang. It was Angela, her voice frantic. "David, we need to talk. Please, can we meet?" she pleaded, the desperation in her voice almost making him reconsider. "Almost. We can talk, but I'm not sure what there is left to say, Angela," David replied, his tone firm, leaving no room for misinterpretation. "Just give me a chance to explain. Please, meet me at the Greenhouse Cafe. 1 hour. Please, David." Reluctantly, David agreed. He knew confronting her directly could give him the upper hand, cementing his position in the impending divorce. He drove to the cafe, rehearsing his words, each one sharpened by betrayal. When he arrived, he found Angela already there, her eyes red from crying. She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes as he approached. "David, thank you for coming," she started, standing to meet him. Her voice shook as she spoke. "I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. It meant nothing." "Nothing? Angela, you destroyed our marriage for a fling. How can that mean nothing?" David interrupted, his anger surfacing despite his efforts to remain calm. Angela flinched, then regained her composure. "It's not just a fling. I think I'm in love with him." The confession struck David harder than he anticipated, his heart sinking even as his resolve hardened. "So, this is how it ends?" he asked, his voice cold. "I never wanted to hurt you," Angela whispered, her eyes pleading for understanding. David scoffed. "You have a strange way of showing it." He stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Around them, the cafe had gone silent, patrons stealing glances at the unfolding drama. "This isn't over, Angela. You made your choice, and now you'll live with the consequences," David declared, his voice resonant with finality. Angela reached out, grabbing his arm. "David, please." He pulled away sharply. "Save it for someone who cares." With that, David left the cafe, leaving Angela in tears. Outside, the crisp air did little to cool his simmering rage. He knew this was only the beginning. Angela had torn their lives apart, and now it was his turn to dismantle hers, piece by piece. His plan was in motion, and there was no turning back. David's next move was precise, fueled by the betrayal that burned in every fiber of his being. He sat in his car outside Angela's office building, waiting for the right moment. His phone buzzed with a message from Angela's boss requesting an urgent meeting based on the concerns he had raised earlier. David knew this was his chance to escalate the situation further. He entered the building with a determined stride, his heart pounding in his chest. The receptionist recognized him and waved him through, her smile faltering as she caught the grim set of his jaw. "Mr. Miller, right this way, please," she said, leading him to a conference room where Angela's boss, Mr. Henderson, awaited. "David, thank you for coming on such short notice," Mr. Henderson began, standing to shake his hand. "Of course," David replied, his voice even. "I believe it's important we address these issues promptly." Mr. Henderson nodded, his expression serious. "Absolutely. Your concerns about the financial discrepancies have led us to conduct a preliminary audit. It seems there might be some irregularities linked to Angela's projects." David feigned surprise. "Really? That's alarming. Angela has always spoken highly of her commitment to her work." "Yes, it is quite unexpected. We're taking this very seriously," Mr. Henderson assured him. As their meeting concluded, David walked out of the office feeling a mix of satisfaction and heaviness. He had set the wheels in motion against Angela professionally, but the personal toll of their crumbling marriage was beginning to weigh on him. Meanwhile, Angela had been called into an impromptu meeting with HR. Her phone calls to David went unanswered, her texts, unread. She felt the walls closing in as she sat across from the HR director, her hands trembling. Angela, there have been some accusations about financial misconduct that we need to discuss, the HR director began, her tone devoid of warmth. I don't understand. I've always done my work diligently, Angela stammered, her confusion genuine. We're conducting a full audit. Until it's resolved, we need to suspend you from your duties, the director explained, sliding a suspension notice across the table. Angela's heart sank. Please, I need this job. There must be some mistake. I'm sorry, but we have to follow protocol. Devastated, Angela left the building, her career hanging in the balance. She tried calling David again, desperate for support or an explanation. Finally, he answered. David, why are you doing this? Please, we can sort this out, she pleaded, her voice cracking. David's response was icy. You destroyed our trust, Angela. I can't just stand by and let you live your life as if nothing happened. But my job. You know I have nothing without my work, she protested, her voice a mix of anger and desperation. That was your choice, Angela. You should have thought about the consequences, David replied, his tone resolute. Angela was left speechless, the phone line buzzing in her ear as David hung up. She slumped against her car, feeling utterly alone. Not only had she lost her husband's trust, but her career was also in jeopardy. The reality of her actions was crashing down around her, and the consequences were more severe than she ever imagined. David drove away from Angela's office, his mind racing with the next steps of his plan. His revenge was unfolding, but no victory could fill the void left by Angela's betrayal. Each move brought a bitter satisfaction, yet the pain lingered, a constant reminder of the love he once believed was unbreakable. As the city's skyline bled into the twilight, David sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, the last 4 weeks replaying in his mind like a somber film. Each step of his calculated revenge against Angela had been executed with clinical precision, yet the hollow victory did little to ease the relentless ache in his heart. Tonight, he planned to deliver the final blow, one that would ensure Angela could never forget the consequences of her betrayal. David's preparation was thorough as he gathered evidence of Angela's infidelity and financial misconduct, including photographs and illicit transactions she had tried to hide. His contact in the digital forensics field had been invaluable, uncovering deleted emails and messages that painted a damning picture of Angela's deceit. He arranged to meet Angela at a quiet, upscale restaurant, an ironic nod to where they had celebrated their anniversary years ago. As he waited, his gaze fixated on the door, anticipating the moment she would walk through it. Angela arrived, looking weary but composed. As she sat down, avoiding his eyes, the air between them crackled with tension. David, why here? She asked, her voice low. To remind you of better times, before you decided to throw everything away, David replied coldly, his eyes not leaving hers. Angela flinched, then regained her composure. I came because you said it was important. Is there something you want to discuss? David smiled, not out of amusement but as a prelude to the storm about to unfold. Yes, very important. I want you to know the full extent of what your actions have caused. He slid a folder across the table towards her. Confused, Angela opened it, her eyes widening as she sifted through the documents and photos detailing her affair and financial discrepancies. How did you get these? She gasped, her face pale. I have my ways. I wanted to ensure that when I leave knowing you have nothing left to hide, David stated, his voice steely. Angela looked up, tears brimming in her eyes. David, please, I'm so sorry. I was wrong, but this is too much. You're destroying me. That was the point, Angela. You destroyed me, David replied without a hint of sympathy. I wanted you to feel just a fraction of the pain I felt. Angela's hands trembled as she clutched the documents. What do you want from me now? Nothing. I want nothing from you, Angela. This is the last time we meet. I filed for divorce, and it's uncontested. You'll receive the final papers soon. Angela's eyes searched his, looking for any sign of the man she once loved. There's nothing left to salvage, is there? Nothing, David confirmed. He stood up, ready to leave her with her ruins. Goodbye, Angela. As he turned to leave, Angela's voice stopped him. David, wait. He paused but didn't turn around. There's something you should know, she said, her voice cracking. The man at the resort, he's your brother, Michael. He orchestrated this to get back at you for the inheritance issues. David's heart, already in shards, seemed to stop. He slowly turned to face her, the final piece of betrayal slotting into place with brutal clarity. Goodbye, Angela, he said again, this time with a finality that felt like closing a book he never wanted to open again. As David walked away, the weight of his revenge and the sting of his brother's betrayal mingled into a bitter victory. Angela was left alone, a casualty of her own making and a pawn in a game she never saw coming. David knew his path forward would be solitary, but for the first time in weeks, he felt a strange sense of peace. The deception was over, and so was his old life. New beginnings awaited, built on the ashes of the past.